Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the Life Show with Musart. Today I have a very special guest. His name is Mark Anthony Clark, who is the founder of the Walk to Freedom Foundation, which helps youngsters, drug addicts and families who have users in their home. And it's just a great support network. And now we're going to hear his journey of what got him here. Hi Mark, thank you for coming.
Hi Musart, thank you for
all the way
having
from
me.
Luton.
Yes, it was a nice easy drive.
But thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you for having me, I really appreciate it.
Right, so Walk to Freedom.
Yes.
What a lovely name. What got you to that?
Okay, so what got me to the Walk to Freedom, basically, I would be going back a number of years where growing up as a child, my family background was that my mum loved us, but my dad beat us.
Oh, I see.
So it was a very dysfunctional background growing up in. There was a lot of domestic violence towards me and my brothers and to my mum.
How many siblings did you have?
I've got 3 brothers and 2 sisters.
Okay. Are you the eldest or?
I'm the baby.
Oh, I see.
I'm the baby of the family.
I
So
see.
a lot of the time I was witnessing all of it, and it had a really heavy impact on me. That it led me to sort of be playing up at school, getting into trouble a lot.
Because you're not getting the attention that you wanted.
Wasn't getting the attention. And I kind of found that I was only getting the attention if I was getting in trouble.
I see.
You know,
That
and
happens quite a lot with young children. Yeah.
very much so. And because way back then, there wasn't the sort of agencies that you have now. So it wasn't getting addressed by any services or anything. Because I believe, like, if it was what we've got now, then I definitely would have been removed from the family home,
Yes.
brought up in care. So, you know, my mum tried her best with us, but me, I ended up just going down my own path. When I left school, you know, I left as the lovable rogue, always getting in trouble, never enough to sort of...
Did you pass your GCSEs or anything at that time?
Not a strand.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely.
Were you bunking all your lessons all the time? Or?
Well, not so much bunking all my lessons, just not paying attention in class, really. I was an average student. I was in the average classes. I wasn't in the low classes. I was an average student, but I think it was just the messing around and the lack of attention. I just didn't put any effort into anything. I did have a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit back then.
I see.
Because,
Are you one of those kids who's selling sweets and stuff?
Yeah. I used to be one of those kids that would sell, like, you know, the chocolate crispy cakes.
Yeah.
Because I used to see that there would never be any left for seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought, there's a gap in the market.
Oh, wow. That's clever.
So I started making my own and selling them at school after lunchtime.
Oh, okay.
But unfortunately, it was the first company to ever get liquidized.
I see.
They were put into liquidation by my dad.
Oh,
Because he was like, where's all this mess keep coming from? So,
Yeah.
So as I kind of went through school and left school, I did try to work, but it didn't work out. I eventually ended up in a life of crime, where at first I was a little bit of a wheeler dealer, just sort of here, there and everywhere, selling car stereos, or if somebody had jewellery, or if somebody, you know, selling the proceeds of other people's immoral earnings.
Was you stealing? Or?
At times I was. At times I got involved in certain things and was committing crime as well, burglaries and so forth. And
Did you join a gang or something? Or?
Not really. I was a bit of a loner for a very long time. I mean, some of my friends were sort of in that field, but I think it's because I was a bit of a loner at school as well. And so I was a bit of a loner, but knew a lot of people, and a lot of people knew me. Because I had this nice guy element about me as well. So apart from the crimes I was committing. So with that occupational hazard of getting involved with the police, going to prison. And as that life sort of continued, there was just one day, and I think it was actually the first time I ever heard a motivational speech, and it was from a gangster who looked at me and he said, you know something, in this country, you get paid 12 or 52 times out of 300 and odd days a year.
Right.
And he pulled out this big wad of money in front of me and he said, I get my money every day and nobody takes it from me.
Okay.
And that was quite motivational.
Okay.
But the one thing I didn't realise was, like, about 2 or 3 months later, he got shot in a nightclub. So I wasn't thinking of the risk of what he was saying at the time, but I just thought that was a good idea.
Did you hear about him getting shot later or at the time? Or?
At the time.
Yeah,
at the time.
Did that put you off?
No, because like most people, I think, well, that's never going to happen to me. you know, I think it's in our human
You're still
nature.
here, so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, he's not a drug dealer, everyone. Don't worry.
We'll get on to past that. Yeah.
We've not got a gangster on the show.
Okay.
We've got a Don, underworld Don, who's coming to talk about his life.
I'm recruited.
Yeah. I'll join your club, mate. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Carry on.
So from there, I basically got involved in the drug trade. Where at first I started dealing cannabis.
How was your parents? Did your parents weren't aware of this?
They were aware of it only when I got in trouble, basically.
But how was home life then? Were you still going home? Or did
home
you move
life
out?
then? No, this is around about when I'm about 17, 18.
You're still going home every day?
Kind of.
Okay.
Because by this time, women were involved.
I see.
And I used to kind of date women who were older than me.
Yeah.
So I used to sort of be able to stay at their house and so forth and so forth. And by that time, I was driving as well because I passed my driving test when I was about 17 anyway. So from there, I was getting more involved in the selling of drugs, starting small level, building my way up. And then during that time, because we're talking about like the late 80s, early 90s, I began to see another trend of drugs come sweeping through London, which was crack cocaine.
Okay.
And basically, I got curious about it because I was seeing faster and quicker money happening. You know, whereas I would only be making so much money in a day, other people who I knew in the sort of arena that I was in, they were making a lot quicker and faster money. So I began to sort of migrate into selling more harder drugs. And for myself at the time, I was taking the party drugs myself. I was smoking cannabis since I was 14.
I'm gonna have to stop you there. How? Now this question is gonna probably be rising from the audience.
It's okay.
How do you get into a higher level of drugs and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Like obviously, you started from the small amount of money. Like you said, the small is cannabis.
Yeah.
Which obviously isn't that as bad.
Yeah.
But the thing is, then you were moved up to the whole cocaine and stuff like that. But so what were the levels then? What were you? How much did you have to earn, and how were you making contacts? Because obviously it is a business.
Exactly.
It's like any other business. You do need to network.
Yeah.
You need to go out there and find people. And like, where did you?
It just happens when you basically start meeting different people. So I could be going to one person and I'm getting an amount of cannabis for so much money.
Okay.
And then someone will say, well, okay, I'll give you double amount for a little bit less. So you get to know that person. Then it's more than likely that person's not just selling cannabis.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? So you'll eventually find out that maybe he's selling heroin, or maybe he's selling cocaine, or maybe he's selling crack. So I then basically started saying, well, okay, I'll take that of weed, then I'll take this of cocaine, or I'll take this of crack.
What about finding customers? Wasn't you scared? Like the police is going to catch you?
No, again, you just don't think of that. You play smart, you know. And then by that time, I had people sort of working for me as well, you know. So when I started moving up in the levels, I was doing less of the work. I was sort of just like picking up the weights, as we called it, and then distributing to my workers. So they would do it and then bring me back in the money. So it was sort of running that kind of process. So I got to a level where I come off of the streets and just worked on a different level. So you begin to sort of build your own security and you begin to play smart. But don't get me wrong, I did get in trouble. I still did get caught, but it wasn't on the levels that I think that police intelligence knew I was operating on.
Oh.
So for me, I was kind of a bit lucky, really, because they never.
How old were you when you first got caught?
Oh my gosh! When I first ever went to prison, I was 19. No, sorry, I was 17.
How did they catch you?
I was involved at that time in a mobile phone scam.
Okay.
And where I was handling mobile phones, but at the time it was really easy to get switched on, and so many of these mobile phones at the time were being put out across London.
Okay.
And the supplier where we were getting the phones from, something happened with him. It was a big operation that happened.
Crime is just...
Yeah, it was my life. It was my life.
Wow.
Because it gave me so much. It gave me the respect. It gave me the money. It gave me a complete... It just gave me this whole facade. Yeah. It gave me this whole delusion that I was somebody coming from a place where I was nobody, where I was in school and I was the fat kid, where I was in school was the kid that was always getting beaten and always in trouble. So being in this life sort of gave me the illusion
That you are something.
that I am something, you know, regardless of the consequences, you know, because
Obviously, if you're coming up from a dysfunctional family, they're not going to tell
Yeah.
you what's right and what's wrong. You're going to think that's normal because
Yeah.
I didn't get this at home. You
Exactly.
know, I've got the money now, I've got the
Yeah.
attention now, I don't need anybody, and it's making me happy, so what else matters?
Exactly, because I remember way back when I was younger, I remember I made this decision in my head that nobody was going to tell me what to do again because nobody's listening to me. And for me, and I actually find out, I found out in psychology, this happens to quite a few people, where I decided that what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong, what's wrong is right, and what's right is wrong.
Yeah,
Just so long as it's coming from me.
exactly.
And this became my identity. So as I was going through this kind of life that I was living, it had its consequences, you know, being robbed, getting stabbed.
You got stabbed.
Yeah, the whole 9 yards. If
Wow.
if you could see,
You don't look. You look fine.
my body tells a whole story.
Really?
Yeah, with the scars and
Why did you get stabbed?
because what happens is with this notoriety.
So if you're not paying up and stuff, and
Yeah,
then
well,
you're gonna...
for me it wasn't that. What it was there came this season in Northwest London where sometimes you get a group of people who use drugs, bandy together and start robbing dealers. Okay, and I got caught out one night like that, for instance, where.
Why did you start robbing the dealers? You don't have enough money.
No. People were going around and robbing the dealers. So
and then
one
they're selling
night,
it to
as a
you.
dealer, I got robbed.
You got robbed. Okay.
Exactly. So one night we had a house that we used to sell drugs from. We used to finish it at 12 o'clock at night. This one night there was a knock at the door. We normally had the doorman. We had security. We sent him home. And there was a knock at the door. I went to open the door. The passage was dark. These men came bundling through the door. I was chopped with a machete across my legs. I was chopped. I grabbed the machete with my hand and nearly had my finger sliced off. Wow. I was dragged into a room, had a gun put back to the back of my head. You know, those kind of.
What was going through you at the time? Were you not scared? Were you? Not, did you just think, okay, now I have hit the peak now. I need to stop this. I need to change my life because this is not for me. Was it when you freaked out?
At that moment,
am I going to live or die? You've got a gunpoint.
Two things happened because at that moment as well, I was using. At that time,
you were taking drugs yourself.
Yeah, I was recreationally using it.
I
was kind of a bit off my head anyway.
Wow.
But it woke me up, and first the shock kicked in. Okay, and kind of like my bodily functions went south as well for a minute.
Yeah, of course, of course.
And then
it's a bit like Train Spotting. Have you seen that?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
They show exactly what happens to the person who's taking drugs.
Yeah. So what happened at that point? When I was on the floor, I remember when it was all happening around me because they were robbing people, and I turned around to the people that had the money and said, "Just give them the money," and this, that, whatever. But they just went on this rampage in the room, and How much
money did they steal?
That night they got around about £2,000 and a quantity of drugs. Because we
you were loaded where you said just let them take it. I thought you had like 200 grand stashed
no,
up or something.
No, because we were smart. We didn't.
Okay.
We sent money. We never kept the money there at any one time in any one place. But it's because they started taking it out on the people that were in the room. So there was our cab driver. He got chopped with the machete. There was a girl in there that got chopped with the machete. You know, while all of this was going on. So I just said, just give them the thing so they can go. So for me at that time, when it was all happening, and this guy was leaning on my back with a gun to the back of my head. This was the most stupidest thing about it. Okay, he leaned and he said to me, he said to me, if we don't get the things, you're going to get it first. And I don't know what made me say this. And I turned around to him and I went, you better make sure you kill me. And he had a balaclava on and I saw his eyes, and his eyes then turned to fear because I could see him go, okay. So then after that, they got all the things. But I remember through the whole experience, I just kept on looking at my finger because I was thinking, my finger's going to drop off in a minute.
Yeah.
Because it literally cut through nearly enough to my finger coming off.
Okay.
So that whole experience happened. And then because of the status that I believed I had on the street, something had to be done about it and so forth. But nothing ever came of it because they disappeared. Because I think once they
Were you in a
realised,
revenge state? Did you not go back to take revenge? Who they were?
that kind of was the element of it. But I think when they knew whose house they robbed,
They were regretting it.
they knew the best thing to do was
So
to
you were
leave.
like a big don at that time.
I wouldn't say so.
People were
No.
too scared to like rob you. Like,
Yeah, I wouldn't say so. I would say that, how can I put
do
it?
you have a good reputation of dealing?
I had a good reputation. You know, that
I didn't know there was such thing in the
yeah.
drug world.
No,
Yeah,
because
this
it
makes
was a
funny.
thing like when other
Yeah.
sort of people in my surroundings heard about it,
Yeah.
you know, there was this sort of camaraderie of people saying, yeah, we'll find who done this for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. People finding me up, are you all right?
Yeah.
Heard what happened?
Were you in hospital then, obviously, after
I didn't go to hospital.
Oh,
I couldn't go to hospital.
wow. That's another part of the criminal world.
The criminal world, you don't go to hospital.
Really?
If you go to hospital with that many woundings, a finger dropping off,
There'd be so many
machete across
questions.
your leg, there's going to be police involvement.
So how did you sort that out?
Well, what I actually did was, okay, we went our own medical route. So,
TCP.
well, iodine. We actually had, for some funny reason, we had iodine in the flat.
Okay.
So we bandaged up my legs to anaesthetise the pain. We put a load of cocaine in it and bandaged up my legs. And we just kept on looking after it and bandaged up my hand as well.
So cocaine is a healer as well?
No, because it anaesthetises, it stops the pain, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh.
So we just rubbed that in it, bandaged up my legs, put iodine on it, and just kept on getting the bandages cleaned.
How deep was your cut?
Very, very deep. Very
It's all over your knees?
Yeah, it's across here. So it was one chop across here. Yeah, so it's very, very good. I mean, the gashes are about that big.
So you didn't get no stitches or anything?
Nothing.
How long did it take to heal?
A little while.
You couldn't probably walk then for a while?
I could. The time when I couldn't walk.
Just imagining that, it's just scary.
There was a time when I had something happen to me and I couldn't walk because I was stabbed when I was living in Birmingham, and because of the depth of the stab, they had to open me up. The stab wound, they had to open me up, and
in hospital.
Yeah, I went to hospital for that because I was going to die.
Yeah.
You was going to die, Mark. You got to go to hospital for this.
Didn't the police get involved at that point?
They didn't. There was no police involvement at all because of the story that I told.
What story did you tell?
Well, basically, I told the truth. What happened was I used to sort of play music at this nightclub kind of thing.
Okay.
And this one night when I was coming out, I was closing down the shop. They thought I was taking the money from the night's proceedings, which I wasn't. And they proceeded to sort of try and rob me. I fought back, and then I got stabbed. And then I had to make my way to the hospital like that and collapsed. And then when they noticed the depth of the stab wound, they had to actually open up my stomach to look further. So I've got a scar that goes from here to here and a scar that's along there. So, you know, it was just this mad life, basically. I don't want to dwell on it too long.
Yeah, of course.
It's
it's very interesting. Could write a book on it.
Crazy life that I was living. And just going back to what you said, there were many times that I thought to myself,
is this for me? Yeah.
Because the thing about it was, in those days, you know, like how you've got so many young people that are getting involved in criminal activity. In my day, there wasn't. I was like at 18, 19, one of the youngest guys that were out there. This sort of life was led by mainly adults, people in their 20s, in their 30s, and in their 40s. Well, no, in their 30s and in their 40s. So I was quite young to it. I mean, I was hanging around with guys who were like in their 30s and their 40s when I was in my 20s. You know, so there was a lot of times I was thinking to myself, what are you doing in this life?
Yeah.
What are you doing in this life? Why? But the thing about it is, my mind would then go, well, what else are you going to do? Are you going to go back to work?
Yeah.
and
you never ever had a normal job for your whole life?
There were times when I tried, but in this period, it wasn't. It was just all about the criminal life that I was leading. So then as I was progressing, and I was selling crack cocaine, I began to get curious about it. And this one fatal night happened where a friend of mine that I was seeing, her friend came out of prison. Okay. And we decided to celebrate her coming out of prison. And the question came up, have you got any crack?
Yeah.
And so went and bought some crack.
It's okay.
And then bought some crack to the house, and we
So
were
that was your
partying.
gift?
Yeah, that was my gift to you to honour
Some
you
crack.
coming out. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I bought a couple of bottles of champagne and all that. Because at that time I was just taking ecstasy and tablets when I went to raves and stuff like that. But I was known as a weed smoker.
Okay.
So when you live that kind of life, there's a hierarchy.
Yeah.
Like, weed smokers don't mix with cocaine and heroin
Really?
smokers. No.
Okay.
Because we're not your kind of people.
Wow.
There's a hierarchy, right? So to me, regardless of what I did with the party drugs, I was a weed smoker. So I didn't touch weed. I didn't touch crack cocaine. It wasn't my thing.
That was only for wounds.
Yeah, exactly. It's only for medicinal purposes.
Only for medicinal purposes. Not for smoking.
Not for
sniffing.
or at all.
Oh yeah.
And so what happened was, the friend who came out of prison kept on asking me, kept on saying to me, "Don't you want to try it? Don't you want to try it? Don't you want to try it? Come on."
So you never used to take that? You never used to just
No.
deal it though?
I used to just deal it.
Yeah.
Because that was my thing.
Yeah.
I don't take crack cocaine.
Yeah.
When I used to see people who took heroin as well, I couldn't believe how people...
Is heroin like the most highest?
Not really. I'll explain that bit later.
Okay.
I'll explain that bit later. But so what happened was, because I was just saying, that's not my thing, so forth and so forth and so forth, the curiosity got the better of me.
Okay. You tried it.
In that one moment, and I always call it was the beginning of my end.
Really?
In that one moment, I tried it and ended up in that house for about 2 or 3 days.
Wow.
Just smoking crack.
You got addicted?
Got addicted. No, at that moment, I would say that I found out what it's all about. Because I still, because to me, in my mind, because there was a lack of consequence, it was okay for me to just do it, because I kind of started getting back on with life anyway. But then what I realised was, it just started creeping up that I was taking more crack and started putting it in my spliffs, in my joints and stuff like that.
Mixing them up with
Mixing
weed?
them up together with the weed and so forth. And it just got worse and it just got worse and it just got worse. And then after, I would say, 1.5 years or so, that was it.
It's really expensive as well.
It's really expensive. It's really needy. It's really got a needy effect to it.
Makes you addicted.
Yeah, it's very addictive. And what happened from there was that I became somebody that became unreliable in the business of what I was doing. So that fell away. Family life fell away. Friends fell away. I started committing crime just to feed my habit. So in a very short time, I lost everything and I lost everyone in a very short time. And
how old were you at this time?
At this point, I'm like about 28, 29. And I've just lost everything.
So your whole business just collapsed?
Everything collapsed. Jewelry sold. Anything I owned of any goods just went into cash converters. And it just all went. My mum started to see her son disappear from before her eyes.
Did she know you were a dealer at that point? Or did
No.
she think you were just...
She just thought I was just out there doing things, because mum lived over one side of London and I was over the other side.
So she could never keep an eye on you?
So she could never keep an eye on me. I would pop in.
Yeah.
Oh, how you doing?
Yeah, buy her expensive things.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, always looked after mum, and she never really asked any questions. And from there, I lost everything. I sometimes used to try and leave the area thinking it's the area, and I would travel from Liverpool to London. I even went to go and live in Jamaica. I went everywhere thinking that if I just get away, I'll be all right. But the only problem with that is that
withdrawal systems.
No, it wasn't even that. It was just I took this with me. This was addicted, yeah. It would give me a moment of clarity when I'll be all right settling in the area. But once this kicked in, the addict me kicked in again. That was it. I was using again because I knew how easy it was to access drugs at the time. And that continued for years and years and years. And in between that, I began to find that heroin became sort of an antidote to the crack. Where...
How were you affording it then? Because you were...
Crime. crime and my gyros.
Wow.
That's the kind of, I became what they call the gyro junkie. Okay, where I was just using my benefits to buy drugs. Because remember, I'm not smoking or using on any big scale. I'm just day to day using. So I'd go out shoplifting. I'd go out with other groups of people and shoplift certain things. I was that got cheese, coffee, aftershave, shavers guy, from selling, this amount to just to keep my habit going. And then what I found is that I started taking heroin to come down from the crack cocaine. And I didn't think about a habit at that time. And then I realized I started developing a habit now towards heroin. And the thing about me being a all or nothing kind of guy, I didn't.
Is the heroin more expensive than this?
No, you can get it for the same price. You can get
Okay.
£10 bags, £10. So
What's the difference?
okay, so crack cocaine
Is white, obviously.
Yeah,
Powder.
is more of a stimulant.
No, I mean the way it looks.
Oh, the way it looks. So crack
Because I haven't
cocaine.
really seen heroin.
Yeah. So crack cocaine.
It's obviously white powder.
It's white powder in rock form because it's cooked up with bicarbonate of soda.
Okay.
Okay. The reason why they call it crack is because before, when they used to cook it up, they used to use baking soda. Okay. But when you cooked it up with baking soda and you put heat to it, it would crack all over the place. It would just pop everywhere and fly out of the pipe or whatever you were smoking it in. Or if you were smoking a joint, it would blow the joint up. So somebody who I don't know, all the research that I've done, I can't find who had the idea of, if you use baking soda and you have cocaine, you can bring it together.
But where does cocaine come from?
Okay, so cocaine comes from the coca plant, okay, which you find mainly in the South Americas. Okay, where they're grown there and then they're processed in a way that it's brought down from being a plant. It's processed in a way till it becomes an oil. They get the oil out of it. The oil is actually able to be solidified and then cut into a powder, and then the powder comes out white, or sometimes different colors sometimes. So it's processed that way. So from that, the man, as we say, don't know who, of all the research that I've done, you've never found that person who created it. So then they must have found that it's easier to cook it together to form a rock into crack cocaine by using bicarbonate soda. So
isn't cocoa like a natural?
Yeah. The coke plant is a natural plant.
Isn't it the same cocoa that you use in chocolate?
Not chocolate. No, it's different.
Okay.
It's different. Okay. So you've got the coke plant and then you've got the coca plant. So
is the coca plant a bit like you'd say like a weed plant or marijuana plant? Does that have?
No.
Is it grown in that kind of way?
It's grown. Yeah, it all comes out of the ground.
No.
But cannabis is a herb. Cannabis is actually a herb. This is grown from a plant, so it's more tree-like. But cannabis itself, even though it can grow tree-like. So why is it so
expensive? Because of what procedures does it take to create it? Is it like?
It's not. You can get them all for the same price. But because of the high, I mean, when you're buying in quantity, yes, it's more expensive. But when it comes to street dealing, you can still buy £5, £10.
Yeah, but when you get addicted, it becomes very expensive because.
Oh yeah, because of the withdrawal.
Yeah. So what about heroin? How is heroin made? What does it look like?
Okay, heroin's basically made from the poppy plant. Okay, so it's processed in a similar way to cocaine. Okay, so it's processed in a similar way, and it's normally you've got different kinds, but it's normally brown or white. Okay, but that's processed from the poppy plant. Okay, similar to the red poppies, it's from the same family, but the plant itself looks a lot different. So they process it as well and put it into powder form, and that's also oil based as well. So it's easy sometimes to transport it illegally as well. Like back in the day, because it's oil based, you can literally melt it down or put it into its oil based form and say wrap it up in tissue or plant or something, and then you can use a process where you can actually get the oil to flow off of whatever you soaked it into, collect it up together, and then distribute it. So there's many different ways of using it. So with crack cocaine and heroin, crack cocaine is a stimulant.
Okay.
Heroin is a suppressant. Okay. So the crack will make you go up, the heroin will bring you down.
Wow.
Okay, but
we'll come back on that.
Okay.
We're going to go back to after we're going to go for a short break and see how Mark got out of that and how he created the Walk of Freedom. So we're going to go for a quick 5-minute break. See you soon. Assalamu alaikum guys, this is Musart from LB24. I've come here to show you the lovely shop of MF Designers, who are my first sponsors, and I want to show you their lovely collection, which is not only lovely and beautiful and designer wear from Pakistan, but it's affordable. We have, let me just show you a bit of the stuff that I like. We have black crochet here, which is from £30. Like, come on, it's got beaded designs, we've got grey, we've got white. Like, this is in fashion nowadays. And also we have a lovely range of summer wear. So if you want to wear your kurtas, guys, just come down and select them from here, and I will give you the address at the end. But guess what, you don't have to come down to Birmingham. They are based in Birmingham on Ladypool Road 146, but they even do online marketing. So you can easily just go to Instagram or email them and choose whatever you want, and it's free postage. Like, you can't get better than that. Right, look at this lovely design here, which is another lawn suit that is all summer wear. You can use this for dolkis, you can use this for just going out, and also we have lovely netwear. Now as you know, it's the wedding season, everybody wants to look good. You know, this is lovely fine netwear. It's got beaded designs as well, flower design, all stuff that is in the latest fashion. You cannot go wrong. We have 3-piece summer suits here, and we also have, again, more wedding range. So you can't go wrong. All your needs under one shop. Not only that, they even do children's wear. Like how cute is this? Come on, I would love to put my little girl in that. Right, and we also have little boys wear, which is little kurtas. You don't want them wearing English clothes. You don't want them wearing suits, because they get all mucky, and children do not like to be free. They like to feel free, and they don't want to be held down. So I would highly recommend these. And also, not only that, you can bring your husband's hair. They've got a whole attire for men. Also, what I'm wearing from this shop is today, from them, my free suit, and I'm going to walk out and they won't realize. So guys, whatever you do, come to MF Designers on Ladypool Road. If not, you've got their online information, and it'll be written all along with my shows, and you know where to order from, and it's free postage. Thank you for watching, and hello and goodbye from MF Designers. Welcome back. As Mark's story is getting more and more interesting about how drugs are made and what got him into it, now we really need to know how he got out of it. Yeah. Right, so Mark, as you know, I can talk to you all day. Honestly, your story is just so fascinating. I would love to sit and write a book on it. Brilliant. No, but so tell me, at that point you started getting into heroin to come off crack, cocaine. Yeah. So wasn't you broke at this point?
I was broke. It was just day-to-day living, really. Minimum amounts of drugs I was taking, and because of all of that, all my moral standards left. I was only just going and getting arrested for prolific offending because of my drug use. At my worst, living in Liverpool at the time, I was 7.5 stone, eating off of the streets. Wow. That's how far my addiction took me. At that time, I was institutionalized a number of times for clinical and suicidal depression. I was sectioned a number of times. I tried to go into treatment, but I would come out and I would just end up relapsing again. And that just became my cycle until I came to a point in myself where, you know, it's a long story of how I actually went into treatment, but then, you know, through the support of my mum and some of my family members, I decided to go into treatment. And it was at that point I made a decision that I am going to stick this out no matter what. Because it's either that or I might as well be dead. Because I tried a number of amounts of suicide attempts before, really? And survived to the point now where I have scarring on my heart. My heart is enlarged. There's a lot of damage that's been done because of my drug use, because of the overdoses that I've had, because of having 2 heart attacks in hospital and surviving all of this stuff. I used to actually say, you know, if I was to get run over by the bus tomorrow, I'd be really upset with God. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, there's no way I can be going through this thing for nothing. So eventually I went into treatment in South Wales, and I made up my mind that I was going to stick it out. And there was a treatment centre called Team Challenge, where it was really disciplined. It was a really disciplined program that challenged the life out of you. Because I didn't have that discipline, I didn't have that ethic anymore. Everything was just around drugs. I was blessed to be around some great teachers, It's peer-on-peer led as well. So a lot of the staff members were ex-users as well.
So they understood what you were going through.
So they understood what we was going through. The leaders that ran the place, they were brilliant as well, even though they were hard on me. The program itself was supposed to be 9 months, but I ended up being there. My program was 16, because even though I'd stopped using, I still had behaviours that related to my using that was still manifesting themselves. I realised through counselling I had a lot of resentments that were causing guilt, that were causing this, that led to my using. So I had to deal with all of that kind of stuff. And I gradually found that this is something that I wanted to do. I found that this was my purpose because I wanted to help more people who were like myself. So you were given the opportunity to stay on at the centre and become a staff member, a volunteer, then a staff member. So I decided to stay on, and even through my program and while I was a volunteer, I was always that guy who, when somebody wanted to leave, I was the one that was sitting in the room with them, trying to talk to them, trying to convince them to stay, till it came to a point where in one of the staff meetings, the manager said, listen, if you ever want to know what to do to get someone to stay, be in the room with Mark. Okay. So I found that I had this passion for people who were going through similar situations like myself. And what I realized was that this was something I definitely wanted to do. I had opportunities to see rehabilitation in other places. I lived in Kazakhstan for a while.
Wow.
In a treatment facility where their way of treatment is completely
Who took
different.
you to Kazakhstan?
Well, what it was, in the organisation that was in Teen Challenge, they're global. So what nobody had done in the UK, as I'm an all or nothing kind of guy, what nobody did in the UK was they didn't do a global internship anywhere. So I asked if I could have the opportunity. So I had this prayer where I went, yeah, God, send me where others fear to tread. So they came back and went, we're sending you to Kazakhstan. So I ended up going to Kazakhstan, living over there for a while, seeing what treatment was like, but still inside of me, I wanted to help people because I realized that nobody was answering this question. Well, why do I do it when I don't want to do it, and when I shouldn't do it, I still do, which most people can relate to. So what I then had the opportunity to do was to attend a school of further learning that was attached to the treatment centre. So we looked at principles and applications for life. Because it was Christian-based, faith-based, they looked at certain doctrines and theology about applications to life. I studied counselling, psychology while I was there as well. And what I realised was that all of the teachings that I had, because basically you had 11 years worth of teachings that was condensed into 6 months.
Okay.
And I graduated. Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
well done.
And I graduated. I couldn't believe it myself, to be honest with you.
Oh, wow.
And but what I realised was happening was I was gearing all of my teachings towards users.
Oh.
Because what a lot of the teachings were around was around the human condition, what we're like as people. So I began to actually see that there was a pattern that was forming here that other programs weren't doing, because I always had this belief that, because I did all of the programs, 12 steps, CBT, I did all of them. And what I realised was that you got some really good points in your programs, but what's setting you apart is what you believe causes addiction.
Yeah.
So it's only the client or the service user that's losing out on something that's potentially good. So I realised that they had all of these strong points. And then I actually realised in my teachings that there were a lot of things that they weren't addressing in recovery when it comes to you. So what happened was I eventually left Teen Challenge. I started working in Newcastle. I went and moved to live with my partner in Newcastle. Started working with a drug and alcohol agency in Newcastle. And again, I began to just get this undeniable feeling inside of me that I need to do something about this, because everywhere I was doing outreach, I had feedback forms that I was doing with people because I had this program in the back of my mind. And the one of the questions that they said when I said to them was, is it like, why do I do it when I don't want to do it, and when I shouldn't do it, I still do it? And every single user that I spoke to would go, that's it.
That's it.
That's
yeah.
exactly it. That spot on, mate.
Yeah.
So it was really funny. What happened was one day I was stood in a sandwich queue because we were getting sandwiches for the clients. And the manager that I was working with, for some funny reason, he turned around to me and went, "Mark, build it and they will come."
Yeah.
And I went, "Why did you say that to me?" And he went to me, "I was thinking about the film, but something said to me, I need to just tell you that."
Sometimes it happens. Yeah.
Sometimes it happens. You just get that
Wake
confirmation of the calling to the desire. And then so from there, I stopped work. And I was supported greatly by my partner at the time. And I began to develop what I call now the dependency support program, where it took me around 6-7 months to put together. And I mean, getting up at about 10 o'clock in the morning, set up a little table with my laptop with all of my, because my notes went everywhere with me, sat with all of these teachings, and I began to formulate it into a program. And I would be like up at 10, and I wouldn't finish sometimes until around about 3-4 o'clock in the morning. Wow. So this was straight for about 5 months. Because that passion and desire to just, I knew that I had something. And so during that time, my relationship sort of collapsed for various reasons. And during that time, my mum passed away. And this is how the name Walk to Freedom came about. Because when my mum passed away, and my sister, who I have in America, in Miami, we were talking. And I was saying, do you know what? I'm going to do something to honour Mum's name and her legacy for everything she's done. And it just popped into my head. And I said, I'm going to start a charity called the Walk to Freedom. And I'm going to da-da-da-da. And she said, yeah, that name's brilliant. Even at that time, I didn't know about Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom. I didn't know about it. Did not know. I said, yeah, it's going to be the Walk to Freedom. So by that time now, and my relationship broke down and all the rest of it, I moved to Luton. And that's where I began the whole process of starting the charity. And at that time, I just wanted to start a little rehab in the countryside. But I went to an organisation because I had to do all this investigation. I've got a program. I've learned a lot about addiction, but I don't know the business behind it. You know, so there's that learning process that I had to go through. So I went to all the courses. I went to all the networking stuff. And it wasn't until I thought I was ready to like go and get this rehab. I went to this organisation to help people set up organisations, because at that time I just set up as a company limited by guarantee because it was a lot easier. And so I went to this organisation, and the lady said to me, after she told me everything I'd need to do before I can even open the door of a charity, open the door of a residential, she went to me, I can see that it's not going to happen, that you're thinking it's not going to happen because it's so much. But this is, I'll never forget, and it's what I tell people when I do life coaching, when I do all the rest of it. She said this to me, she says, listen, if you believe in yourself and you truly believe in what you want to do is going to help people, okay, and you do not give up, I guarantee you it will happen. Because I think sometimes what happens in life,
at that time.
Yeah, I needed to. I think for the first time in around about 7 years, I wanted to smoke a cigarette when she finished with me.
Oh, bless her.
Because by this time, I'm 7 years in, I'm clean, I'm not using or anything now. So, and I'm not drug dealing anymore, by the way.
Yeah,
and so at that time, you know, it was what I wanted to hear. But I think sometimes what happens on our journey is that the thing that we think we're going for doesn't manifest itself.
Yeah, it takes time. There's always,
yeah,
like there's this line for entrepreneurs, and they say people think it looks like that, but it goes like this, it goes like that. Trust me, I live it.
Exactly. There's many stop-offs on the journey.
There is, and you think, yeah, this is going to work, and then
exactly,
yeah, you're so high, like you think then something just sets you back. Then you go up, and then something sets you back.
Exactly.
But it's a matter of understanding that those setbacks are very, very important.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you would never understand your success.
Exactly. It's all in the looking back.
Yes.
And so.
And you want to appreciate it same way.
Exactly. It didn't come easy. So what happened?
Did you start getting charity help then, or funding?
Well, actually, not at that time.
Okay.
Not at the time. Again, I owe it all to my mum because she was the first ever beneficiary of the Walk to Freedom, because it was the inheritance that she left me.
You used that?
I used some, I used up most of it at the time just to live at the time, but I used some of that to just get a little small office to get me started. But even then I had nobody coming through the door.
So were you charging these people to come for that, or just giving them free advice?
It was free advice because I knew that my clients can't pay for it. So, and I still do that to today. I don't charge my clients. And
so how do you survive?
I'll get to that. Okay. So at that point now, I was going and seeing the other organisations, the other drug and alcohol partnerships. They were closing the door in my face. They just did not want to know because they were basically around maintenance prescriptions and very little around recovery programs. They'll do you can do the 12-step program, but anything new we don't want to know about. We've got 12-step here. We don't want to really do anything else. And they just was closing the door on me. They saw me as somebody who could be a danger to people, who could be who's got a criminal record. All of that kind of stuff was following me because even during that time, I applied for a job working with them while I was trying to get this thing going with the Walk to Freedom. And what happened was they actually saw what I was doing and they went, listen, we can support you to do this because we can see what you're trying to do and we can try and use a pilot with our clients. But then what happened was when it came to my DBS check, which is like checking out your criminal record and so forth, right, when that came back and it was like an encyclopedia of all my criminal offences, I couldn't get the job. Even to the fact that out of everybody that applied for that job across the borough, I scored second highest in the interview process, and they still didn't give me a job. But that actually encouraged me to keep going because it was like, fine, I'll work for myself. I even, when I was on benefits, had my benefits sanctioned because I believed in myself that I am a CEO. I am going to be the owner of my own company. I'm going to be all these things, to the point they were sending me on these C-Tech courses for people who've been unemployed and this, that, and whatever. And I went to them one day. So you get a reference of this, do you, when you finish the C-Tech course? And I said, well, why am I going to write myself a reference? Because I'm going to be the CEO of my own company. And they were like, why do you think you're better than everybody else? And I said, no, this is what I believe. I always kept that in my head, to the point that they sanctioned my benefits for 6 months. And I had to live off of literally nothing while I was getting this off the ground. Wow. But that self-belief just kept me going. It kept me going. It kept me going. And even when what happened was... It's
probably also when you're helping people without expecting anything. So you're being blessed in different ways.
Exactly. Well, the blessing was that I appealed the decision. Okay. And so they sanctioned me for like 6-7 months. I appealed the decision, gave them all the paperwork to show them what I'm doing, and I won the appeal. So they backdated all the money.
Good.
So I'm like, good, another week's for the office rent and stuff like that. So you're right, it did bless me in other ways, you know. And so from then, I'll never forget this one guy who was a user, and we always used to see each other because I'd go out on the streets and hand out my little made-up leaflets, and another organisation tried to support me in what I was doing. And I was handing out leaflets, and this guy really helped people to get to know who I was. So he started telling people how good the program was, and other users started coming. So word of mouth was getting about, not with the organisations, but with the other users on the streets. And they were coming to see me. And then as we began to build up what we were doing, we began to get little pots of money here, there, and everywhere. People heard where I was coming from and my approach to addiction. They were saying, you know, I'm really interested in how you're looking at it. And we began to get successes as well happening. Okay. And then what happened was, during that time, I used to sit in on some family groups in other services where I was invited to speak. And what I realised was that nobody was leaving these family groups who had a user in a home with any answers. They were coming back week after week after week after week.
For an outlet.
Looking for an outlet, but they're just talking about the same thing that happened. So sometimes you look at what you've already got and naturally realise you can dovetail from it.
Yes.
You can expand on what you have. So from there, I went back to what I had. And again, that urge came again that there's something else I can do with this now. So what I did was I designed an awareness course for families who have a user in the home. Okay. And it explains what our program explains for the user. So the user gets to understand why I use when I don't want to use and I shouldn't use. So the family now understands why he uses or she uses these. So it was that, and I launched that. That went really well. And then again, I heard again, because I think sometimes in business, it's not about what you think they want.
Yeah.
It's what they're asking for, is what you've got to cater for. So again, I was hearing people say, clients go, I hate when I sit across the table from someone in another agency, and they tell me that they've never used before and they've never had that experience. So why do I need to talk to somebody who doesn't understand what I'm going through? You know, and then that was another reason why they like coming to me, because I get it and I was professional about it.
Yeah, and you went to the peak of it. Of
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, it's extreme because I was injecting.
Yeah.
Like now, I don't have any veins or anything. It takes the nurse around about an hour and a half just to find a vein.
Wow.
When I have operations, it takes longer to do the operation, a simple operation, than it does. No, it takes longer to cannulate me and put the anaesthetic in than it does to actually do an operation.
Bless you.
So again, I was seeing something else happening here. So because I thought to myself, well, you know what? Yeah, that's true to a certain extent, but sometimes I think you don't have to have a broken leg to know how to fix one.
Yeah, exactly.
So what I did was I designed a course as well as an addition to one for families. I designed a course for professionals.
3 levels, isn't it?
Yeah. So I designed a course for professionals or people who engage with users but have never been a user themselves. And they saw the credit, and people were seeing the credibility in it. And I took the risk, and I went to the National Open College Network. Have you heard of it?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, what they do is they do accredited courses.
Okay,
that people will buy from them. So someone suggested that I go to them with the course and get it accredited. And I was like, ooh, what, me? Yeah. No education, no nothing. All I've got is my petals. And I went with it to them, presented it to them, and they loved it. Wow. And they accredited the course. And they underwrit it as well. Wow. And they certificate it now.
Oh, wow. Well done.
Yes, yeah.
So then now with the Walk Freedom, so how are you running it now? You got funding, obviously, from...
Yeah, we're because of the lots of changes and cuts, the funding's going okay in certain areas, but we use our training courses. We get funding from different pots here, there, and everywhere. We get people who graciously donate to the Walk to Freedom from time to time as well.
Isn't the government not helping you with this?
The government right now aren't helping. Aren't helping at all.
They should, because it's something that's...
Exactly. Well, that's the next level that we're going to, because we didn't approach them with an evidence-based approach. We've established ourselves in Luton enough now that those people who were closing the door are now opening it.
Yeah, it seemed like with this other foundation, a friend of mine has opened, well, a lady that I interviewed in Swansea is helping women who have been through FGM, like a foundation. So she's done that all on her own.
Wow.
Brilliant. And I think now she's starting to get a little bit of funding towards it, and it's also covering domestic violence. So it's about just carrying on, really.
It is.
But it's like drug use and all these kind of problems and domestic. These are issues.
Exactly.
That the government should be funding, and then if they do that, we might have less problems.
There is now part of policy and legislation that the door's been opened wider for statutory and voluntary organisations to work together, where it wasn't that before. So we've held out in that time, but there's been lots of cuts across the board, like around about for the statutory bodies or the other charities that work with the council for drugs and alcohol. They had cuts of around about, I think it was around about 60% cuts to their budget, where lots of jobs were lost, services were cut down. Where there were 6 services, there's only 2 that you can go to now. So we've tried to sort of work within that. So with that, I also realised that there's an element of drugs and alcohol, whether it's dealing or using, that young people aren't being addressed. And so I didn't look at it as a drug and alcohol program. I developed what was called From the Horse's Mouth, where we were looking at young people who were on the borders of exclusion, getting into gang violence and so forth, because I then went back to school and studied child adolescent psychosocial disorders for young people and adults. I went back to school and studied all that again.
Wow.
And again, I saw something in there about what was out there for young people and what's not working. So I developed some personal development workshops and a different approach to mentoring, which seen lots of success, even if I would actually say about 80% success rate, even if young people will refer to us because of their drug and alcohol use or cannabis use. We didn't put them through our drug and alcohol program because we found it wasn't working.
Yeah.
But what we found was that when we put them through our mentoring program, because part of our mentoring program is about discovering your true identity, forming good relationships. We don't ask you what's your why, because a lot of people don't know what their why is when they're young people.
Yeah.
We ask you, what do you want?
So what's the youngest people that will come up?
We've worked with young people from the ages of 12 years old up to around about, the oldest I'd say was about 22, 23.
Age 12 drug users, did you say?
No, not necessarily drug users,
but
more people on the borders of exclusion, getting into family troubles, where if they do continue along this line and the people groups that they're working with.
I think that's amazing, because I think self-development now has become such a big topic, which I wish if it was 10 years ago, I think it would have made a massive impact on humanity. Because I think if self-development taught in schools and stuff like that, you will have such confident children.
Exactly.
Who would believe and have, achieve whatever. You wouldn't have bullies and
Exactly.
And I feel sorry for bullies sometimes. They're doing it because they want for attention or whatever. So it's just one of those things. So, you should give yourself a pat in the back for what you've done. And, and I personally believe that, your journey that you went through, sometimes you have to go to those extremes.
Yeah.
Otherwise you wouldn't do what you're doing today.
Exactly. This morning I put up on a post on Facebook, and it said, some people who are called to a purpose, the way it starts is a complete oxymoron to what would be a journey of a success in life. You start out of emotional pain. You start with no money. You start with all the negative things, basically. You start with all the odds against you, and then you go on the process. So it's a complete oxymoron to how the world will perceive somebody would be successful. They've got money to start it and so forth. And that's what it is for a lot of us, And my final tag at the end was, I can see why we never want to give up.
Exactly.
So with the walk to freedom and all that it's doing, I then decided to rebrand myself. So there's another arm to what I do. So that's when I started rebranding myself as Mark I Impossible Clark. So that's where now it's more adult based, more looking into the youth development work as well, where I'm doing public speaking a lot more, because I look back on all of my skills that I have and gifts that I have, and I realize, well, Mark, you've been public speaking since you were 10 years old. Because I used to hold the microphone at my dad's sound system in Carnival. I used to do it when I was, in that life, street life. I used to talk on the microphone in schools and not in schools, in dances, and I used to host shows and all the rest of it. When I was in treatment, I used to do talks. I used to take the pulpit and every rest of it. And then I used to go and do talks in schools and stuff around drugs and alcohol. So I thought, well, why not bring this to your repertoire of what you do? So I do that.
Well done.
I implement life coaching into it, where
they can get a bit of money.
Yeah, exactly. Where I actually realised that sometimes we have to first realise we can do the thing. Because we build up an immune system of so much negativity that goes on with us, that when someone's going, you're great, you're fantastic, we're going, yeah, I am.
Yeah, it's true.
So part of what I do with my life coaching and my public speaking and all the rest of it is to get you to the point that you realise that. So that's led me on a marvellous journey as well since I've been in that. Well, I've met some wonderful people.
So you don't regret whatever happened in your life then?
Sorry?
You don't regret whatever happened then?
The only thing I regret about what happened in my life are the people that I hurt along the way. I hurt a lot of people. It made my mum ill. It was a contributing factor of the worry that I gave her, going to bed every night wondering, is he going to be dead or is he arrested again? Or, there were people who came across the rages of my addiction.
But you weren't to blame for that because of how your life spiraled out from a young age.
Exactly. I help. That's why we work with families, to help them to understand.
To create that haven.
Yeah, exactly.
Protection for children, so they don't take
take
that step.
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
as we could be talking to you for ages.
Yes.
Before we go, I'd like to ask you to
Sure.
give any advice to the viewers
Okay.
that they can start using from their life at this
Okay.
point in time.
Okay.
So if you want to look at them and tell them.
So when it comes to drugs and alcohol, I'll say that if there is a user in the home, your only job is support and encourage that person towards getting and seeking help and support. If you know somebody that is using, please get them to tap into whatever services are happening in the area, and that's a start. Just remember, they don't know why they use when they don't want to use, when they shouldn't use, they still do. That's the torment of it all. And if you're somebody that wants to make a change in your life, wants to make a change in your career, wants to make a change in your business, wants to change a relationship in your life, I'll tell you this from now. Firstly, you are possible. You can do it. And thirdly, is that thirdly?
Yes,
Thirdly. Thirdly, you have all that it takes within you to do it.
Oh, wonderful advice.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that interview, a very thorough interview. There's so many lessons to learn from there. And until next time, The Life Show with Musart.